Welcome to the dining room. Do not look around it. It's very messy everywhere and you are not allowed. Yes, this trend is a few weeks old. However, it's still going on, so it's still relevant. I know that the internet, 1 week is like a year, but my patrons also wanted me to talk about this, so their wish is my command. Plus, you know how much I love to unpack discourse, and this is getting pretty heated. So we're going to watch some of these TikToks together and pluck apart this trend. Is there anything more to it, or is it just ugly, angry, feminist, hating men? Is it just mean? Is it misandry? My patrons already have the extended, uncut, uncensored version of this video, but for the rest of you, thank you so much for watching the adverts because we have literally just moved here and the place is a mess. We haven't had internet for over a week. I'm using data right now in order to upload this for you. That is how dedicated to work I am, that I am paying to upload stuff. So thank you very much for watching my advert. And also when it comes to these TikToks, I'm going to be reading them aloud because most of them are playing just this short section of the Nicki Minaj song. And as much as it's a great song, copyright exists, and also I know that a bunch of you do the same thing as me, which is doing other things like washing dishes or whatever whilst you're watching a YouTube video. So I'm going to read this aloud to make this as accessible as possible to everybody. Let's get cracking, shall we? So what is this trend? First, let's try and establish what women in male fields hashtag actually is. I've been desperately trying to find the originator of this trend and I haven't found them. If you do know them, please let me know in the comment section down below. I'll even add it to my pinned comment because I think that people should get credit. The trend is showing what it's like to be a woman existing in a world built by men for men. What people are doing is a skit acting the way that men have acted towards them in their own lives, whether this is in public, in the workplace, or even romantic relationships, referencing things like manspreading on public transport, or how doctors mistreat us. A male patient walks in with persistent pain. I diagnosed him with anxiety and recommended that he decrease his stress levels, eat better, lose weight, exercise, and get some sleep. Please refer to my medical misogyny video for more information on this because it is deep-rooted and is still a huge issue. Or it's belittling women in the workplace. He disagreed with me in a meeting, so I told him to try not being so emotional at work. Or how women's roles in the workplace get downgraded due to sexism. He walked in wearing scrubs and introduced himself as a medical student resident doctor. I ended my phone call saying, "Hang on, the nurse just got here." This TikTok is no shade to nurses. It's not trying to put nurses down at all. It's commenting on the fact that the only job that a woman could possibly have in a hospital or something would be a nurse. Not a doctor, not a surgeon, only a nurse. Meanwhile, if a man walked in wearing scrubs, then someone would hang up the phone saying, "Oh, sorry, the doctor just got here." You know, that's what it's getting at. This hashtag, women in male fields, speaks to the very real lived issue that women have when they have entered into workplaces which are in a traditionally male field. This is going back through history. Think engineering, scientists, doctors, manual labor kind of jobs. You can also include the armed forces in this too. When women entered into these workplaces, assumptions were made about them, and this is something which still happens to this day. I have witnessed it, and I've also called it out. Say a bunch of co-workers are around a table in a meeting room. Who's going to take the notes? The natural assumption is that the woman who's present is going to be taking the notes, regardless of her position. A client is coming in. Who's going to be sorting out the drinks and refreshments and setting everything up? The natural assumption is, again, that will fall on the woman who is in the room, again, regardless of her position in the company. I was an executive assistant, so if I was around or was organizing any of these meetings, of course it would be me. I was taking the minutes and the actions and giving my sassy remarks all the time, which was sometimes appreciated, sometimes not. And also I was catering. But I know from my many years at many different workplaces about women's experiences, again, regardless of their position, how they have been expected to take on these more domestic duties. They get the added burden of being the note taker, the organizer of the calendars to make sure that the meeting even happens, the peacekeeper role for when egos are starting to get out of control, and the refreshment getter. All of that typically falls on women because, you know, they're just so much better at it than us. I've had the pleasure of working with amazing women across my career, and one thing which they have consistently shared with me about their frustrations is during a meeting they will speak up and share their idea, and then no one even listens to them, but then the guy sitting next to them or near them repeats their idea and everyone's like, "Oh, what a great thought, Paul. Yes, let's take that on. Jot that down, Kim," or whatever your name is. Come on, Bryony, you need to be reasonable. Things are better than they were back in the day. Sexual harassment isn't allowed to be a thing anymore. That's frowned upon. Yes, but sexism in the workplace is still very much rife. And let's be real, harassment still happens. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had all of these women coming crying to me, okay? So to me anyway, this is where the trend stems from. Women trying to work in traditionally male fields and being mistreated, being disrespected, because when you actually boil down the issues that people are talking about, as we'll be unfolding now, is it comes down to a lack of respect. But because social media moves along so quickly, the trend is not just about workplace experiences, it's also about romantic relationship experiences and being disrespected there. It's flipping the script, so women are acting in the way that men have towards them. They're retelling the story. Think about traditional story times that used to happen here on YouTube, for example, and they were really, really long videos. This is it in a much more condensed format. Think about Who the F Did I Marry? Remember that TikTok series? This, again, has made it into a boiled down, meme-friendly version, which a lot of people can easily relate to. And so that's made it gain traction so quickly. So let's have a look at some, shall we? I went on a date with a guy. He told me he's bi and asked if I'm accepting of that. I said, yeah, as long as I can watch. Oh, yeah. Please, can we stop fetishizing bisexuality? It is nearly 2025. Ghosting him, but still sending hearts on his stories, so he's in a constant state of confusion and will never be able to get over me. Breadcrumbers are the worst. It automatically makes people feel like this.
What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean?
What is it that you want by sending this? Do you want to actually have a relationship? Or do you just want to be able to have someone on the back burner? Regardless of what gender you are, please do not do this to people. Oh my goodness. It's like Project Runway. You're either in or you're out. We don't like dealing with an indecisive little kitty cat that doesn't know whether it wants to go out the door or not. Now, this one by Marla Fritz really took off. He was crying in bed, so I said, here we go again, and turned around and fell asleep. Aw, the emotionally unavailable and dismissive boyfriend. We've all been there, haven't we? When you're upset about something and it's genuinely getting you to the point of tears, to have someone say, oh, stop overreacting. It's not a big deal. It's fine. Or the worst, just relax. Oh my goodness. Talk about dismissing everything that you're actually bringing up. All of the issues. And yes, I know people will say facts don't care about your feelings, but the fact is that there is an issue here, otherwise someone wouldn't be crying about something. So hear about the issue and then you can work things out together, maybe have some healthy communication. When he says exactly what I've done wrong, so I hit him with the I'm sorry you feel that way. What do you expect me to do? Whoosh, it just went straight over your head there, Chad. And I personally hate this one even more because, people typically say, tell me when I've done something wrong, tell me when something's wrong. And then when you do tell them and then they react like this and say, sorry you feel that way, stop it. When he asks what we are, so I say, we gang. When I was scrolling through, there are so many about these situationships where guys are saying why do we have to put labels on something? Now look, some people genuinely do not like to have labels on their relationships, and that is completely okay. The entire point is this is a discussion between both of you or more of you if you're a polyamorous, okay? It has to be a discussion that everybody is comfortable with rather than just being dismissive. And if someone is trying to say, I just really don't like that sort of level of intimacy, we don't need that. Sweetheart, furious jumping is also pretty intimate, so I would just go watching what you're saying there, because if you can handle that but you can't handle having a conversation about what your relationship status actually is, I would say that the doors are kind of shutting on that furious jumping. Weirdly, this is something which got talked about more in the book Rough, with the fact that people are more comfortable to actually do furious jumping with someone rather than talk about, emotionally intimate things. But if you can't talk about your feelings, then I don't personally think that you should be allowed to enter furious jumping bouncy castle kind of land. The trend covers all sorts of red flags, right from situationships to starting dating to when you're further down in a relationship. When he sends multiple texts in a row explaining what's wrong, but I only reply to the last and least important one. The whole I ain't reading there, I don't have the energy for this. Or they may even try and hit you with some therapy speak. Hey, yeah, we've definitely seen that happen. And think about when people are living together. When he asks me to help out around the house, but I respond with, this is what men are supposed to do, and I just took out the trash yesterday. There is that sexism in relationships we know all too well. And it has been proven time and again that women do more unpaid work at home, even if they work full-time, and even if they earn more than their partner. People are living in a space together, you should all be pitching in to make sure the place is clean and tidy. Okay? Cool. all the way to being treated badly by in-laws. When a guy tells me his in-laws are mistreating him, so I tell him marriage is all about compromise and he should learn to adjust for his happiness. If your parents, the in-laws, are treating your wife like trash, it is your responsibility to have that conversation and step in. It is your responsibility to actually protect that person from being treated this way. That is not your chance to just say, oh, well, you just have to put up with it. Oh, you're so weak, or whatever other nonsense. I'm really showing my age here, but this makes me think of two songs which came out in the 2000s. Like a Boy by Ciara in 2007, and If I Were a Boy by Beyonce in 2008. Ciara's song, which I adore, along with that entire album actually, that was like 17-year-old me, oof, banger album, is very aggressive.
Ladies, I think it's time to switch roles.
Sometimes I wish I could act like a boy.
The lyrics are on the screen for you now, but it's kind of like, ha, you wouldn't like it if I acted like you, now would you? Whereas when you compare it to Beyonce's song, If I Were a Boy, it's very sad, it's very melancholy. It's kind of like asking for sympathy, asking for empathy, pleading in a way.
When you lose the one you wanted, it's taking you for granted.
Like, if I were a boy, this would hurt you, you know, and we're kind of more used to women acting in this way, and we do not like it when women act angry. Now, I'm probably going to get some people hate me, but I'm sorry, but when I've been in an angrier mood about being disrespected, Ciara's song is the one I turn to, not this one, not the whole like, boo-hoo, I'm sad. I'm like this. Why is it that we're still having this conversation? My darling, my sweet little nutmeg, we are still having to have this conversation because sadly, sexism is still rife. So of course we're going to see various ways of women actually talking about their frustrations. We're going to see various ways of people coming out with creative outlets to be able to cope with the fact that they are feeling dismissed by governments in a lot of cases and by people that they're supposed to be trustful of in their own lives, you know. If you're in a romantic relationship with someone, you're meant to feel supported by them, and then you get treated like this. This TikTok kind of explains it really well.
Been realizing, oh, I thought it was my fault he said that to me. What do you mean they're saying this to everybody? If you look in the comment sections, it's girls replying to comments being like, your boyfriend says that to you too? How do all these comments know exactly what my boyfriend says to me? Because it's not your fault, babe.
Where the man versus bear trend spoke about women's lack of safety, this is speaking of women's lack of respect, as in people not giving them any respect. And how can you be in a romantic relationship with someone if you don't respect them? Ooh, subscribe to come back for Valentine's Day because I've got a whole big video I'm working on for that. I'll admit, when I first saw things popping up on my feed of this trend, I was kind of like, what is this for? Like, what is the purpose? Because it felt a bit mean, for lack of a better phrase. But then when you take into consideration all of the things which have been happening in the world, a rapist being elected US president, men and boys saying your body, my choice proudly, women in the US's quick adoption of the 4B movement, yeah, it's really not surprising to me that this trend came up at all. It's creating an opportunity to vent about your own personal experiences without naming names. This meme really is shorthand for woman dresses up as the jerk that she used to date and like reenacts the things that he did. It's just the shorter version of that without having to go to the effort of like putting like a goatee on or whatever, you know, like I did for my brocialism video. I reenacted the situations which you had sent to me through Instagram and I impersonated those people and the actions that they took, okay? So it's this same thing, and this has been happening for so many years at this point. Like, YouTube skits used to be so heavily about doing this. It's more the fact that this has just evolved into a more bite-sized meme version of it where you can quickly and easily put something together without having to go to the effort of, you know, getting up in male drag or something. I think the issue that's coming up is because this is short form and it's instantly like, it's just 2 sentences basically maximum of what's going on, and you kind of have to watch a fair few of them to be able to understand what's actually happening. At least I did. Maybe I'm just, you know, with my 35-year-old brain and long COVID, maybe I'm just like not as quick as the rest of you, I don't know. But no one's answering a question like what they were with Man vs. Bear and being able to explain themselves. Instead, it's literally just this short form skit. It doesn't really allow for much nuance, it doesn't really allow for much conversation. You can have conversation from it, however, people are being more reactionary to it because it's you know, fairly reactionary. It's kind of like venting to a friend and being like, this is my situation, this is why I went through. And then people can quickly and easily relate to that, and people are saying, oh my goodness, have we dated the same guy. I've dealt with this too. How is this still happening? How has this happened to so many of us? It's creating that sort of camaraderie and allowing other people to see the red flags to actually look out for in relationships. And I think a lot of the negative reaction has come because women aren't acting nice here. Like, women are angry, they are frustrated, they are venting. And again, we do not like seeing angry women. It makes us feel uncomfortable and like they're being unreasonable and illogical and all that other stuff, you know, because emotions on women, oh gosh, especially anger, ooh, that's so ugly on a woman, disgusting. That's why I'm saying it makes me think of Beyonce's song versus Ciara's song. Here we are definitely seeing people fall into the Ciara side of things as opposed to this side of things. Now, tragically, we are dealing with a global femicide issue. 85,000 women were unalived by men in 2023, 60% at the hands of a partner or family member. Domestic violence still happens and is perpetuated by men that people intimately know in their lives. And like I said before, I am currently working on a huge video about this, and it is also specifically targeted at men, and it's about these abusive relationships. It's about how patriarchy does genuinely hurt all of us. And I'm reading this fantastic book right now, which relates directly to this. I've highlighted so much in there, that video is going to be a biggie. We are still needed to have conversations like this because this stuff is still happening. You know that I'm happily married to Brandon. We've been together for over 12 years at this point. I shouldn't feel lucky for the fact that Brandon has stuck with me whilst I've struggled with this chronic illness because of long COVID. Like, tragically, that's not always the case. When women get sick in a relationship, men often leave. None of this should be considered exceptional. We just have a healthy, normal relationship where we consider each other, we've purposefully built our lives together, we talk about things, we resolve issues. It's not that hard to treat your partner with respect and respect their autonomy as well. So let's look at the response from some men. I should give credit where it's due because some men have recognized themselves, like Solo Bob, I believe that's their name, when they said this.
Made me realize that a lot of women have actually been studying us so much, because every time I see a single video, I'm like, wait, I did this one before. And then I scroll again and I see one and I'm like, wait, that is so me. And then I just scroll another one, I was like, oh my days, I actually did this. And it's like, how are you man actually figuring out this stuff? Like, what? These are like secrets that you man are not supposed to know at all. And it's so crazy because I feel like a lot of you women, you have a lot of trauma to just unpack, because clearly you man have gone through it.
And dude, as much as I don't like the fact that you've been like terrible in your relationships or situationships, at least you're recognizing it. At least you have seen the fact that women have caught up to your game, or whatever you want to call it. Maybe you can actually have some self-reflection to be able to change your ways and not be doing this stuff, because it's not okay. It's not okay for anybody to be treating people like this. Now, there are some dudes who have gotten the assignment beautifully, like Moody Doody. Rudy for making me say that name out loud. He did the hashtag men in women's fields. When I show up for her every day despite having to work harder than her to prove my worth in a world built by women for women, while also dealing with my right to bodily autonomy being in jeopardy at every turn, while also trying to love myself even though entire industries have taught me the complete opposite for centuries. Brilliant, great job, we love to see it, no notes. Like, men genuinely could participate in this if men are actually in women's fields. Say for example, if you're a male nanny, you could talk about how you get emasculated for that work. You could talk about how people are homophobic towards you because they think that you're gay. You can talk about the working conditions and how little pay you get. It's effectively like this storyline from Friends, you know, when Ross has all of these negative associations because of a male nanny.
Are you gay?
Ross! It's okay. I get that a lot doing what I do.
So you're just like a guy who's a nanny.
It's literally doing that same thing. You could literally do that. It's another way that men could be involved and share their issues with patriarchal teaching. There are others who are reacting in the same way with the man v bear situation, where they're calling this misandry and they're saying, don't you realize there's a male loneliness epidemic and this is just making things worse? You're villainizing all men. And it's like, no, they're actually on about their specific lived experiences with men. On the male loneliness epidemic, I would agree with you that there is a loneliness epidemic, and that's actually been going on since before the pandemic even began. men. And in fact, as this study shows, women are lonelier than men when it comes to their older years. And from this article from The Guardian, from new research that came out, the latest research echoes findings by the Campaign to End Loneliness, which found that women are more likely to be chronically lonely than men, and that 16 to 29-year-olds are twice as likely to be chronically lonely than those who are over 70. But there aren't cries about women's loneliness epidemic. We're not dealing with women going and like shooting up places because they feel like they're entitled to a relationship with a man. And then we get to the hashtag men in female fields. Now, female on its own isn't really a bad word, but when it's used by guys that typically have a podcast, it's done in the way of female, and it's used in a derogatory way. Telling her she's invalidating my feelings, no, not feelings, fellings, every time she starts whining, not winning the argument. If you'd have just quickly checked that spelling, your smug face here would not look so ridiculous. And this isn't the sort of clapback that you think it is, because invalidating someone's feelings when that's probably the thing that they're arguing about to begin with because you hurt their feelings, that's actually going against the purpose of having this discussion to begin with, right? Me after gaslighting her into apologizing even though I was clearly in the wrong. Please stop it. Gaslighting is a term which gets thrown around so loosely when it actually means something very serious. When someone's gaslighting someone, it is a very serious thing. It's not just like a one-time like lying in an argument or something. I've also made an entire video about therapy speak too. There was one which I like because we actually face this situation all the time as women. I think that we'll be able to relate to this, okay? Just lied to every girl that approached me by telling them I have a girlfriend so they wouldn't talk to me. May I just quickly refer you to the man v bear situation once again. A woman existing in the world doesn't mean that she's actively looking for a partner, wanting every single man to approach her and try and hit on her. And tragically, it is the safer option for women to say that they have a boyfriend rather than that they don't want to date you, because men respect other men's property. Yeah, you see where I'm getting to here, because they view women as being property. So that's the issue here. It's like, oh, you're spoken for by someone else, so I have to respect him and not hit on you now, as opposed to just her not wanting to be with someone or not being interested in someone when they approach them. And this hashtag also devolves into victim blaming, because of course it does. When you regret the body and you claim SA, like, nah, bro, stop it. This is not okay. If a person is saying something was SA, that's not due to regret, that is due to your actions. You're also telling on yourself quite a bit here, bro. You may want to do some self-reflection. You may want to, do some learning around consent. And the other recurring joke I saw all the time was along the lines of, when she's angry at you but she says that she's fine. She already asked me twice what's wrong and I answered nothing, because it's her fault if she doesn't know how I feel and can't read my mind. Now it sounds like this is a communication issue here, buddy, and I would go encouraging people rather than saying that they're fine or trying to be dismissive about it or going into passive aggressiveness, because that doesn't help anybody, would be to actually have the proper healthy communication and say what is really wrong. But also, have you considered that perhaps this woman has been saying what's wrong, has brought up this issue with you multiple times, and you haven't actually listened and stopped doing the thing that was bothering her, and so therefore it's made her really angry because you've done the thing yet again. Let's say, for example, you leave a damp towel on the floor and she's asked you, please don't do that, we're going to get mold on the floor, it ruins everything, like, please don't do that. And then you do it again and she's like, okay, please don't do that, remember, like, put it in the basket, hang it up so then we don't ruin the carpet. And you do it again and she asks the same thing. And then you do it again and then she's just angry, because why does she have to keep on asking you to not put your wet towel on the floor, for example? I have to clarify, this is not a live situation with me, but I've seen this happen in other relationships. I understand her being angry in that situation because she's told you multiple times what not to do and you haven't changed. You see what I mean? That's probably why someone's angry and is just saying, fine, whatever, I don't want to get into it again. Because if they bring it up again, they get turned into the nag role. Funny how that happens. I think you can understand after these examples, it's no wonder that the male version of this didn't become a trend. Is there a dark underbelly to all of this? Because 2 of my patrons actually said that they have seen women joke about SA and happening to men as kind of like this, like, I'll get back at you, like, you have to deal with this situation now, and it's like, ooh, okay. Much like I have talked about in the past when it comes to objectification, I don't believe that dehumanizing people or threatening violence on anyone is a way forward. Like, the whole, like, oh, they do it to us so we can do it to them sort of like equality mindset, that doesn't work when it comes to, feminism, at least in my mind, when it comes to treating someone as an object, as a thing, as someone that you are wishing violence on. Now, me personally, I haven't actually seen TikToks of people saying that they want this to happen to men, but the fact that 2 separate patrons have brought this up, that they've seen it, is kind of concerning to me. I'm sure that people will be commenting down below if you've seen it, but this is where I'm just like, can we just keep this to the whole, these are red flags to look out for, and oh my god, I've dealt with this too. If we can keep it to that sort of education point, because that's actually what it should be about, is about venting about situations that you've dealt with, and trying to help others recognize when they've dealt with stuff and may not have realized it, and maybe doubting themselves and feeling terrible about themselves when they shouldn't be. That's really what it should be about. Much like the man versus bear thing had a really dark underbelly and people were threatening violence, including towards me. The comment section on that video got so hideous. You won't see a number of those comments because people got really violent. This was towards me, by the way, and I never even said if I would choose the man or bear throughout that whole video, because I was literally just sharing what has been going on and analyzing it as video content. But oh my goodness. So there really is this issue with this almost want for violence, and I don't want any trend to go down that sort of path, okay? Neither in terms of people making content or people reacting to content. You can always choose how you react to something. It is always within your power to do that. Again, even though I haven't seen this from the women's side when scrolling, doesn't mean that those things aren't out there, and I'm just highlighting that this needs to be something that people are aware of, because I don't want people to go down this sort of pathway, because I don't think that's helpful to anybody. It's not exactly making any sort of camaraderie. It's not actually furthering a conversation. It's not doing anything positive. Final thoughts. Venting about poor treatment is incredibly normal. Making a joke out of a terrible situation that you've lived through, mate, that is dark humor is how we can get through things, okay? It really is. I personally live for this coping mechanism, because if you don't laugh about something, you'll cry. Ultimately, the trend is about highlighting issues that many, many women face, and it's helping people recognize the things that they need to be looking out for. It's helping people recognize things that they've dealt with in their own lives, and it's helping people recognize that they shouldn't have to put up with this poor treatment. At least everything that I've seen from the trend, that's what I've picked up from it, but you may have a different interpretation. I'd be really keen to hear your thoughts down below. I personally don't think that these memes are meant to be facilitating this sort of deep, meaningful, introspective sort of commentary and conversation. But that's also okay, because they're short form memes. If you want to get into big topic things, that's kind of where you come to a channel like mine, or to many other video essayists or articles and things which are genuinely unpacking stuff. And like I said, I am working on that really big video. I know that I sometimes have unpopular opinions, but that's my takeaway from this anyway. And if you did make it all the way to the end of this video, thank you so very much. Let's respect the women in STEM with the emoji that you leave at the end. Maybe let's have a scientist or an astronaut. Or what about a judge? Because we are definitely judging the people that have been treating others in this terrible way, in these sort of those situations I showed you before, rolling over and just being oh, here we go again, being dismissive of your partner. Yeah, I wish I had a gavel right now and judging you. And thank you especially to my patrons, because they really do shape the videos which you see before you today. And especially to my Trash Panda enablers, my top tier: Alyssa Pisani, Alyssa Schmidt, Birgit, Carrie Quake, Jam, Laura Bell, Mila Gautier, Stella Sapiente, Tammy Poitras, Tim Long, Tonya Beignet, and Zachary Elalu. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. I am going to try and keep on unpacking this house. I found some Christmas stuff, I think that you can tell. But yeah, things have been very chaotic. And hopefully we'll get internet again soon, so then I won't have to keep on buying data. Who knows? But anyway, the main thing is that we've got the cats back. So that's the thing that we care about the most, and we are so happy to have them home. Being without the cats for 5 months was incredibly hard, but they're back now and they're more lovey than ever, and we're so happy to have them home. Anyway, I'll see you all again next time. Bye, lovelies.